I know what you're thinking. Right now, the Adepta Sororitas are doing really well after the launch of their 10th edition codex. They don't need fixing, not like the Gene Stealer cult needed fixing. The Battle Sisters work a little too well, but that was before the points change of October 2024. With the points going up on many key units, the Adepta Sororitas may struggle a lot. They are a difficult army to use well, as synergy between units, especially characters, and miracle dice management are a key part of the army that you have to get right. Games Workshop also plans to rework the miracle dice generation and use before the end of 2024. That may be in our favour, probably not. Perhaps this rework will come at the same time or separately to the balance patch. We have recently received new rules to have Litanies of Faith, now called Hymns of Battle, back in our sister armies. Receiving new rules outside of balance patches is not that absurd a concept as some may think. This video may give some ideas of rules that may end up being completely different to what they eventually give us. But there are some rules improvements that are less about balance and more flavour and unit usability. Yes, I am talking about Celestian Sacrosancts. Whereas I normally talk about Celestians with guns. Why yes, they should have been back in the codex. What I want to do is look at the rules that could be changed and make the units of the Adepta Sororitas play better, to be more fun and still feel like themselves. They work right now, and they worked in the index, but it could be better. If you were homebrewing and modifying rules, these are some ideas, or if you were playing Adepta Sororitas, I hope to open your eyes to the flaws with this good army, so you know what mistakes to avoid and what defects to compensate for in your list building and tactics. There are some complaints about the Adepta Sororitas index that sister players come up with often. Why are we a horde faction? The miracle dice rule is kind of long and needs some explaining. Why can't my characters join units that they should be able to join? Why are my battle sisters made of corrugated paper? The army special rule is really long. Compare that to the Space Marine Army rule. Compare it even to the Chaos Space Marine Army rule, which is something we're going to come back to. Especially move the top line of the text into the actual body of the text. It keeps being missed by new players that it's once per unit per phase. But I don't like miracle dice. It's bad because we become like Eldar. And as soon as you can pick a dice to say, oh yeah, that's what happens, it can be really annoying for your opponent. They fire their mega cannon, it's strength 26, AP -6, 500 damage! But it's only one shot, so it's stopped immediately by subbing in a miracle dice of 6, because that's what our invulnerable save is. So the risk is, with this special rule, we become the top of the meta after the Eldar fate dice change. You may think as a Sisters player, oh great, we can win all our games. But no, we become as hated as the Eldar. That is not good. You don't want to be like the Eldar. Now I've talked about the miracle dice before, and how we could fix it. That was one way, this is another. I'm thinking about the older style miracles that were doing specific things for specific units, but I would make them more general. I would have us gain miracle points. So this isn't a dice that you roll with a random d6 result. This is you increment your miracle points by 1 when you gain a miracle point. This means that you don't have dice that are useless. In 9th edition, a 1 on a miracle dice was great for a morale test. Now it's kind of pointless. So I would change them to miracle points, and you spend a miracle point to do a miraculous action. A unit can use a miracle point once per unit per phase. And it would be one of this list of 4. So you can add 2 more inches to your normal move or advanced move in the movement phase only. This means that the sisters can move, miraculously, faster than should be humanly possible. We can have lethal hits on a unit, either in combat or shooting. This may stop the reliance that we all have on the Palatine. Though the reliance on the Palatine isn't so much for the lethal hits, it's for the rapturous blows. But we'll get onto units separately. The lethal hits can represent the Battle Sisters miraculously hitting the incredibly small weak point that the enemy Battle Station, Imperial Knight, Chaos Knight has. Sustained hits can miraculously represent how we fire some bullets, and yet, even though we fired 4 bullets, 5 enemies just got shot. The God Emperor provides. And the 4th option ignores cover. So this can represent the Battle Sisters getting very lucky and their shots hitting just as the enemy sticks their head up above the parapet, or they manage to shoot through a very small hole that had previously been made by other shots. I wasn't going to add any +1 to wound, that would be way too powerful, and I didn't want to add a +1 to hit because we already have a detachment that gives +1 to hit. I'm okay with the detachment rule. It's fluffy, it fits our martyred lady very nicely. But having miracle points means that it brings 40k back to being a random dice game where we don't pre-plan with what we've got already rolled. Let the Eldar and the Age of Sigmar Tzeentch have foresight. Let the Battle Sisters do miraculous things. So this is a lot more like the Chaos Pact's ability, but we have a limited number of them, and we don't risk death in doing so. I have seen Chaos players be quite gamey with that, and deliberately do a Dark Pact, hoping to fail their Dark Pact test, then they can die so that the enemy isn't able to charge them. Not quite what I want from Battle Sisters. But Chaos can do that with any of their units whenever they need to. Adepta Sororitas players still have to conserve their miracle points. And these miracle actions are a bit like the Custodes in their mixed martial arts, but it's not just for the fight phase, and it isn't army-wide. It's a bit more boring, yes, but it is more easily understood and better fits in with the rules that other factions are getting for 10th edition. Eldar is the exception, which we already know has been a problem, which is why from the start of the edition, Games Workshop has changed their number of fate dice from 12 to 6. So this will change how certain unit abilities interact with them. So the Triumph of St. Catherine, that will change how it interacts with miracle actions. The Dialogus now allows you to do one miracle for free without spending a miracle point. The Palatine's Rapturous Blows, that would still cost a miracle point. The Sister's Cherub lets you spend a miracle point on them, but then once per game, you get a miracle point back. The Simulacrum still rewards you for killing enemies, because you gain a miracle point that you spent when you killed an enemy using a miracle. But using it on units that don't generate miracle points, like war suits and vehicles, that is where our miracle points will get depleted. I'm thinking that we may want to remove Acts of Faith from the small units like the Assassins, the Crusaders, and the Archoflagellants, so that they don't just get spammed as units to die and generate more miracle points. But I do like that the miracle points are generated on death, as it means that the number of points you get scales with the game size. I definitely think it's an improvement on the army special rule we have right now, so I'm okay with the points going up across the army. I don't want to play a horde army. So in theory we have more hitting power, but we need more defense, otherwise we crumble. I'm not going to say we give all the sisters 2 wounds. I am okay with us being the only power armored faction that does not have 2 wounds. But I would improve the invulnerable save of all the units by 1 point, to a maximum of 4+. Even if you don't like the miracle points idea, improving the invulnerable save should be appealing to you. When was the last time you rolled an invulnerable save for a Sister of Battle? She has a 6+ invulnerable save. Who is throwing AP -4 into infantry? Against low AP attacks, we have the 3+ save, but weight of fire will still kill us. We are still going to be toughness 3. A 4+ invulnerable save will help a bit for the Seraphim and other units like that. This is not massive, but it will help. So again, the points for all the Sisters units will go up. What then about the Celestian Sacrosancts, who already have a 4+ save? Well, their shields will make them 2 wounds. Some of the Space Marine shields give an invulnerable save, others give an extra wound. These sister shields give the Sacrosancts the survivability that they need. So let's look a bit more into the units. I'm looking at doing minor modifications only. Most of the units are fine. I'm sure we would love Zephyrim to be strength 6, AP -3, damage 2 swords, but that doesn't suit them, and we don't just want to have a power fantasy. We want to have something that works in 10th edition. And I want the changes to be easy to understand and track so that players don't need to have played a previous edition to get the gist of the rules, and opponents aren't required to have read your rules to understand what happens. That is why I wanted to make miracle actions simple and based on common abilities from the core rules. So we know about Sacrosancts. We know that right now there is no good detachment for them. They do okay in Hallowed Martyrs, they do okay in Army of Faith. But the combat detachment is the penitent host, and they lack that key word. So being an anvil and having 2 wounds that also fights decently in close combat is what we should use them as, so that's why they would get 2 wounds. Increasing the invulnerable save of all of the units means that the Repentia are already more survivable with a 5+ invulnerable save, and survivability is their biggest flaw, folding against any amount of Overwatch. If anything, they are just too many points. They do well in the Penitent Host, but outside of that detachment, and the vast majority of players are, they do badly. So just having that 5+ invulnerable save, like I said, we're increasing the invulnerable saves to a maximum of 4+, and lowering their points a bit should be fine. For the regular Battle Sisters, really all of these units, 32mm is just too big as a base size. 28mm should be the maximum. That is what the Novitiates are on. It works fine. The Battle Sisters have good rules, but having the Simulacrum means you want to stay on an objective while the Defenders of the Faith ability wants you to leave the objective, so that's a weird mix. I would return the Simulacrum to activating when you destroy an enemy unit. It may not be the best for the Battle Sister unit alone, but good with a character like the Palatine, and it's going to be good for Dominions and Novitiates. I would want all of the Simulacrums to be the same across the army for ease of remembering. I'm happy with the Novitiates, with their guns or with their combat weapons, but their very low strength lets them down from being anything other than a bump to slow enemies, or as a delivery method for a Palatine, because then you can reroll the charges with their banner. I think if their special rule was reroll wound rolls of 1, and if the enemy is on an objective, reroll all wound rolls, that would be better. I like that they infiltrate, it suits their lore as a kill team. The Retributors have a similar rule that I would almost switch with the Novitiates. Almost. I would have reroll hit rolls of 1 to make up for their low ballistic skill, because unless they're stationary, their ballistic skill 4+ on those heavy bolters and multi-melters. And then they could reroll wound rolls of 1 if attacking an enemy unit on an objective, which means that the multi-melters especially are more likely to wound. I find it hard outside of Crusade games to remember which units in the enemy army have killed Sororitas units for the current Retributor ability to trigger. Now we can get retribution for the enemy trespassing onto objectives, rather than punishing them for making martyrs of fellow sisters. Not that Ministorum Religious Dogma needs to make sense. I wouldn't want it to just be an upgrade of full rerolls to hit like the Codex Novitiate rule, because that would exclude the Retributor Heavy Flamer from getting a useful ability. They are torrent weapons. They auto-hit. Reroll hit rolls does nothing for them. I don't think it would be a good idea to split up the Retributors into a Melter squad and a Bolter squad and a Flamer squad like the Crisis battlesuits got split up. It doesn't work because the box only gives you 2 of each weapon. But what about the Holy Trinity? That's fine. That's why I like a little bit of reroll to hit, a little bit of reroll to wound. I'm very happy with the Dominions as well. All of their weapon choices are good, and the Stormbolter is too often overlooked. But I would also make the Superior's weapon Assault. They are the only weapons that aren't Assault in the unit, and it's easy to forget. So, Assault weapons for all of the Dominion weapons. Seraphim, also great. They don't need changes, and they didn't change from the index of the Codex. Though, if we could upgrade their invulnerable save to a 4+, that would be lovely. Same for the other jump pack alternative. The Zephyrim Embodied Prophecy ability works with miracle points really well. They get 1 ability of sustained hits or lethal hits automatically, and for a miracle point, they can have both. Normally with miracle points, you wouldn't be able to use 2 on a unit per phase, unless you were in the Army of Faith. So Zephyrim are very good. For all the extra add-on units like the Assassins, the Crusaders, the Arco-Flagellants, the Mortifiers and the Penitent Engines, I don't think they should get access to Acts of Faith. But that's more of a flavor thing than a rules ability thing. It could stay if the rules required it, because the Battle Sisters, Adepta Sororitas as a whole hasn't had the largest range. So having some of our army that isn't really part of it and couldn't use the army special rule, that could become a problem. So it would be yeah, they shouldn't have it, but if they need it, then yes, to make the army work on the tabletop, it's fine. They can still have the faction keyword Adepta Sororitas to use stratagems and so on, but probably shouldn't generate miracle dice on death. These are the units we want to have them die. They are penitent units. It's not miraculous, it's not holy when they die, it is deserved. And rather than improving their invulnerable save, I would just scrap their invulnerable save. The Archoflagellant and Penitent unit's invulnerable save is an army trait that everyone has, but I think the invulnerable save can be gotten rid of on those specific non-Sisters units. The Crusaders and the Death Cult Assassins, they can keep theirs. They already got upgraded profiles when they went to Legends, and I like these new profiles for them. It's much better than just, yeah, here's your super cheap utility units, do actions with them. While the Archoflagellants, Mortifiers and Penitent engines are losing their invulnerable save, and maybe losing Acts of Faith as well, drop the points for them. It's more thematic to have a tide of disposable bodies, but not really a core part of the army. Moving on to the vehicles, I think Paragon Warsuits are now done right. They have improved toughness compared to the Index, so they're actually tough enough to survive some anti-tank, and they provide anti-tank abilities with their special rule, which covers one of the big things that the Sisters lack. I still don't like the models, and I like building them even less. But rules work. Like with the Rhino. The Rhino is a Rhino. The Rhino is king. We love rhinos. The Immolator. Now, much as I miss the full rerolls to wound after disembarking, we don't want to make the Bringers of the Flame even more powerful by combining this reroll to wound with +1 to wound from the Rites of Fire stratagem. That would be too much. The splitting units is a good ability and necessary in this edition, where you can't choose to have half-size units of Sisters, Novitiates or Dominions. Honestly, there is another fix. Let the points for Dominions, Sisters and Novitiates reflect a unit of 5 and a unit of 10. 5 Dominions could be 90 points, and the other 5 with bolt guns to make up a unit of 10 be a cheaper 35 points. Games Workshop is doing different points for different unit sizes. The current points for Seraphim are cheaper points per model for a smaller squad than a larger one. And it has been a complaint since the start of the edition that Dominions especially are in squads of 10 minimum. But if you want 5 Battle Sisters, 70 points. The other 5 are 35 points. Novitiates too, 70 points for 5, 100 points for 10. That's based on the current points value and rules from Games Workshop. But as a unit, I'm happy with the Immolator. My version would have an invulnerable save of 5+, but remember that if we're switching Miracle Dice for Miracle Actions, you wouldn't have 6s available to just pass saves against rail cannons. Or we have the Repressor. At a mere 5 points more than an Immolator, the Repressor is a great choice already. I like its ability to hide units, I like that it can be used as a mobile bunker with firing deck 6. My biggest complaint with the Repressor is that it's not available to the Imperial agents for Arbites and their allied sisters to ride around in. But that's another Codex fix. And fixing the Imperial Agents Codex might be a very, very long video, so maybe let's not consider it. The Castigator is a well-made datasheet. Congratulations to the people who designed it. Both of the turrets are good choices, and the special rule is very, very useful. No change there. The Exorcist is an amazing model, the rules just need to catch up. It needs its second kind of missile improving. Most of you will have forgotten or not even realised that there was another kind of missile for the Exorcist. If you're thinking, yeah, it's called the Hunter Killer Missile, I rolled a 1 for it the last time I fired it, I know what it is. No. The Conflagration Missiles. Or perhaps the Conflagration Missiles are not the problem, the profile is what it should be. The problem is the Sisters lack anti-tank, so when a unit has the option to have an anti-tank weapon, why would we consider anything else? The Exorcist should have 2 firing modes, like other kinds of missile launcher. Fire the profile you want. Make the missile type that you glue onto the model cosmetic only. Most people do. The ability is decent, it can cause battle shock tests, so firing missiles to flip control of an objective is possible. But I'm not a huge fan of the increased chance of deadly demise. Enemy tanks are often close to us because we are a short-range army, and unless you're playing the Hallowed Martyrs, we don't want to take more casualties. The Battle Sanctum Shrine is a representation of a problem. Fortifications were a bad idea to implement as units. They sold models for a bit, almost every faction has an emplacement or terrain feature that they can include. What it could provide as an ability is 2 for the price of 1 on Miracle Actions. You could have the lethal hits and sustained hits, or, as it is a Tower of Faith, all Sororitas models within 1 inch of it have plunging fire regardless of where they are in the model to get an extra point of armor penetration. Let's move on to the characters. Morwen Vahl is a powerhouse. No change to her. Miracle action to make the Spear of Illumination even better. Great. I'm pretty happy with Celestine and also with Junith. You can generate a command point if you're lucky and roll the dice well, or you can spend a miracle action to get a command point. Command points are really useful. For Ephriel Stern, I need Kaiganil to lose the character keyword, because we do not want the heretical option of making him the warlord of an Adepta Sororitas army. It was funny when I was having an Inquisitor control a Genestealer cult army. It's not okay if the Eldar are in charge of the Adepta Sororitas. Get rid of it. The Triumph of St. Catherine is expensive. It could come down in points if the Fiery Heart ability, its most powerful ability, was changed. At its current very high cost of 250 points, I don't think it'll see much play. But if we took out the bonus 2 inches of movement and kept the +1 to advance and charge, that would be fine. Having it the other way around would also work. Lose the +1 to advance and charge, but keep the bonus 2 inches to movement value. Another way to lower its points, if you don't have the gain a miracle dice of a 6, just gain a miracle dice, or miracle point. To lower its points further, if it has 1 relic active, and for a miracle point, you can activate a second one. That option would go away at 6 wounds or fewer. That could work. The Hospitaller does not need to be on a 60mm base. 25mm is fine, 28mm is okay. It depends how much you care about base size. The rules for her are great in the Codex. 5+ Fear No Pain and being able to bring back a sister, or bring back D3 +1 sisters for a miracle action. The Canoness is also greatly improved from the Index. I'm really glad the Canoness can join more units compared to the Index, but the weapon options still need sorting out. You should be able to pick one from the Bolt Pistol, Plasma Pistol or Inferno Pistol or Condemned Bolt Gun, and one of the Blessed Blade, Power Sword or Blessed Chainsword. There probably needs to be an extra attack on that chainsword. But remember that the chainsword can become an awesome option for enhancements because of its number of attacks. Oh, well now those attacks are generating additional strength and additional AP, or whichever ability it is from the enhancement you picked. The Canoness's 2+ invulnerable save is once per game, and I'm not a massive fan of 2+ invulnerable saves, but it's okay. But I think it should be activated when targeted with an attack, and it should cost a miracle point to use. Having this 2+ invulnerable shield could be one of the hidden options, so that if you don't have the brazier, the null rod, or the rod of office. In fact, that could be what the null rod does. It's up to you if you want to have it displayed on the model or not. The current null rod doesn't do a lot. Even against psychic enemies, you will probably want the rod of office against them to help with just killing them. And rather than being one shot, the brazier of holy fire could be activated with a miracle point or by discarding a miracle dice. The jump Canoness, I'm happy with. The weapon options are more diverse and valuable than you think. It isn't just that, the halberd is best. I have a video on the different options. All of them are nice. For the Palatine, I wish her ability was easier for new players to understand, but I like it. I also think it would be nice if she had Scout back like in the Index to better suit her pairing with Dominions. For Astrid and Agatha, they could maybe just do with a few points off. But from the Index to the Codex, we got the one change I wanted. That the Tapestry ability affects all weapons, not just melee weapons. We are a short-range shooting army and our bonuses should reflect that, especially when Astrid and Agatha couldn't join combat units beyond the Celestian Sacrosancts. Generally, Games Workshop has done well improving the units from the Index to the Codex. The Imagifier giving all units she joins a 2+ save is awesome, but the Litany of Deeds could be more active outside of death. I thought about maybe once per turn a miracle action within 12 inches is free, but getting an extra miracle point on death would be okay. Again, as an aura. This would save having like free miracle actions for units with cherubs, and for the Dialogus. The Dialogus, if not doing things with miracle dice, would let you perform a miracle without spending a miracle point. The Minosaurus Priest, I think there needs to be at least one more attack on the power weapon. It is just a worse option compared to the Vindicta. But otherwise, they have a nice set of rules, including a series of bonuses for when they're joining infiltrating units and when they're joining scouting units. I am considering that they should be able to join Repentia, but have an extra limit that they can't take enhancements. Save the enhancements plus Repentia for the Dogmata. Now the Dogmata has a role, making Repentia better, and it fits the law. They chastise, they guide the Repentia, and send sisters to join the Repentia. They are very much like the Blood Angels chaplains. So having the Dogmata being able to always join the Repentia suits their role, suits their law, and then you have a character that can get enhancements that could make the Repentia unit as a whole better. Because I'm not seeing massive reasons to take the Dogmata right now. And I'm pretty sure the Dogmata should have a 4+ invulnerable save, and the Dialogus have their previous index version of a 6+ invulnerable save, considering the contrast in armor. Though I would again be fine with the Dialogus improving that to a 5+ save. And now a special extra character that's not in the Codex, Celestian Sacrosanct Aveline. Let Celestian Sacrosanct Aveline join Celestian Sacrosancts. That shouldn't be difficult. She can keep the lone operative ability because it does nothing if part of a unit, but if the whole bodyguard was removed, she returns to being a one-woman army. That is all of the characters. Like I say, mostly these would be minor changes. But are the detachments? I would want the detachments to be compatible with my version of Miracle Dice, or just generally there are some tweaks that need to be made. For the Hallowed Martyrs, the Chaplet of Sacrifice would want to be changed. So you could gain a miracle point the first time the bearer's unit goes below starting strength, and gain another the first time you go below half strength. I'm saying the first time you go below it, in case you attached a Hospitaller to return them to above their half strength, or back to starting strength. But it would only trigger the first time that happened. And really that's the only change. The Hallowed Martyrs is so very fluffy. You can blow up your immolators. You can have sisters sacrifice themselves, or force archoflagellants to sacrifice themselves for the greater good of the sisters. Not the greater good, not the greater good, for the greater Imperium. For the faith. For the Emperor. And you can have characters resurrected and brought back to life, not just Celestine. It's a great detachment. The Penitent Host is, of course, the problem child of the detachments. We should change the Penitent Host so that you can choose if and when the vows are active. Being forced to do all three in the first 3 battle rounds is annoying, and Games Workshop has recently FAQ'd that they meant it to work that way. And it shouldn't work that way. Much like with the Gladius Task Force, you should be able to pick which one you want when you want it to be active. And maybe you don't want something active in the first battle round. Maybe you want to do it in the second battle round, and then a different one in the third battle round, and maybe leave the last one until the 5th battle round. That should be fine. I don't know why it is the way it is. For the Psalm of Righteous Judgment, I would change that ability so that if the bearer is on the battlefield, archoflagellants and penitent engines and mortifiers generate a miracle point when they die. If I was going to take that ability away from them, this is the way to give it back so that in the Penitent Host, their detachment, they work better. I would like this detachment to change the abilities like the vows and the stratagems to trigger on penitent units, not just penitent models. So adding a Canoness with a jump pack with Catechism of Penitence to a Zephyrim unit should give the unit the penitent keyword as long as the Canoness is alive. Then stratagems like Passion of the Penitent will work on the unit, not just on the Canoness model. These are little changes that could be made to improve that detachment. It's not a very popular pick for detachment. But the Bringers of Flame is, and it works really well because the detachment rule is all about getting better short-range firepower for the army that specializes in short-range firepower. So I would just change Miracle Dice terms to Miracle Point terms, like the Manual St. Griselda. Let's say you just gain a Miracle Point. Similar to enhancements from the Army of Faith, but you have to roll a dice to see if it happens in the Army of Faith, but they could cost fewer points. We have points to balance these enhancements. And in the Army of Faith, it straight away becomes a better choice if you're doing Miracle Points rather than Miracle Dice, because this detachment can generate so many miracles. You use this stratagem, you get a Miracle Dice. You use this enhancement to kill someone, you get a Miracle Dice, or Miracle Point. Are there any other changes that you would like? What are your suggestions, and what do you think Games Workshop will do with Miracle Dice when it comes to December? They may just make a change to Miracle Dice so that, like the Eldar, we have fewer. Perhaps a return to 8th edition where there are miracle dice at the start of the battle round, not at the start of each player turn. That would still leave us with a dud dice of a 1 or a 2, so I hope they figure out how to do something with that and it isn't just a flat debuff. A lot of the units I've talked about you may have thought, oh wait, that was a change? I didn't even know it worked like that. So make sure you know that you're not making the common mistakes of Adepta Sororitas players, but thankfully the canoness has already been fixed. Have a great day of 40k.